Alrighty, guys, let's hit it. How is everybody doing here? Welcome in here to Slaughterhouse Sports and welcome into Kurt Magoosh Sports. We are going to talk about everything that went down in the sport of collegiate football and in the National Football League. I will break this podcast apart into bite-sized pieces if you guys want to check them out on the YouTube channel. So right now, we are going to go over the top five, the playoff picture, where everybody stands in college football after a very exciting week 6 in college football. As I take a little sip of water there. So college football was absolutely incredible in week 6. College football has surpassed the National Football League in terms of the excitement level of the game. Because with college football, you're seeing excellent quarterback play. Hendon Hooker and Bryce Young put on a show for the ages. Bryce Young, as a quarterback, he does a sensational job of seeing defenders out of nowhere. There could be a guy coming unchecked right at Bryce Young, and he has eyes in the back of his head. He can see guys, and he can find space in the pocket. He's unbelievable. It's like he's playing the game at half speed because he's able to process things just so quick. He has very athletic linemen, defensive linemen coming at him from Tennessee. He makes them look like they're in quicksand, and then he fires the football in to his receivers. He's a magician. He is unbelievable. He has shades of Johnny Manziel, shades of Doug Flutie, shades of Charlie Ward. One of the great college quarterbacks that I believe that we've ever seen. And he's won a Heisman Trophy, and he's a guy that right now at Alabama, he's a guy that also is an SEC champion. He's somebody that if he played another year would be maybe up there with in terms of the most accomplished players in all of college football history when it's all said and done as Bryce Young, because he is so dang good. These Alabama quarterbacks, you go from Jalen Hurts, who's having success in the NFL, who was a very productive quarterback, in terms of winning and got to a couple of championships. Then you have Tua, and now you have Bryce Young. And Jahmyr Gibbs, the fact that Alabama and these teams can go in the transfer portal and get guys, Jahmyr Gibbs is sensationally talented. But that second half, guys, was a complete track meet. It was fairly exciting. But this defense, guys, with Pete Golding, they give up so many explosive plays. This Alabama secondary is not very good. This Alabama team in general, and I know I'm wearing an Alabama shirt because I wear a ton of college football gear on this show, so I'm not a fan of any team per se, so I could try to be an unemotional viewer in a lot of ways. This Alabama team, guys, is just not that good. I know Bryce Young is a great player. I know the offense now with Jahmyr Gibbs is rolling. But defensively, where was Will Anderson? Where was Dallas Turner? Where was the defense? You could tell that Nick Saban wanted to tear all the remaining hair follicles out of his head because he hated this style of game. He's thinking, what type of tomfoolery is this? What type of football is this? Because it was literally like flag football in terms of defense. 52-49, not a semblance of defense, no stability. Alabama had a special teams error, and then the biggest play of the game, Alabama's up by a touchdown, and they allow a 78-yard completion from Hendon Hooker to Jalen Hyatt. And Jalen Hyatt, guys, not only can he really catch the football and he's unafraid of contact, he's tall, he's a deep threat, he can cut, he has speed, he is an elite receiver in the SEC, and he's now at Tennessee. You also have Cedric Tillman that's going to be coming back as well. But Jalen Hyatt, a game for the ages, 5 touchdowns, I believe 276 receiving yards in this game. So, man, you look at this football game and Hendon Hooker is incredible. He takes punch after punch from Bryce Young, and these were 2 prize fighters just punching each other, and none of them wavered. That's exactly what college football is all about. And Alabama, they surged back from 28-7. Jahmyr Gibbs, Bryce Young, magical plays. But Hendon Hooker kept responding the whole game. Even when Hendon Hooker kind of sailed a ball from the pocket that was intercepted, he responded. And that's what makes Hendon Hooker to me. I know Bryce Young won the Heisman, but Hendon Hooker won this game head-to-head. He won this game. And Hendon Hooker's had a tougher schedule than C.J. Stroud has had. Hendon Hooker's gone to LSU, and LSU's no cakewalk. LSU was favored against Ole Miss. Hendon Hooker has taken a team. This is a Virginia Tech transfer, a guy that plays with Justin Fuente. His story is very much like Joe Burrow, okay? He was a backup last year to Joe Milton. He was a forgotten man in college football. He had a good deep ball, but he was 6'4", he wasn't that mobile, and he was thought about at Virginia Tech as just being an all-right quarterback, okay? You look at Heupel and Hendon Hooker. But Hendon Hooker has taken his play to a level where he's one of the best quarterbacks in college football. He's in that upper tier. I would say that there's 3 guys, that are in the upper tier of college football, maybe 4. You have Caleb Williams at USC. I'll put in there at 4. But it's Stroud, it's Young, and it's Hendon Hooker. And Hendon Hooker went on the road to Pittsburgh and played great. Hendon Hooker went to the Bayou. I know it was a day game, but he played LSU, and he played spectacular. C.J. Stroud's had a tremendous season, but C.J. Stroud also Cedric Tillman's been missing a bunch of the season. C.J. Stroud has Marvin Harrison. I guess you can say that Smith and Jigba has missed a bunch of the season. But Hendon Hooker, C.J. Stroud also got to start all of last year. C.J. Stroud has an established coach and established culture. Without Hendon Hooker, if Joe Milton was starting at quarterback for Tennessee, they would be a pretty good team. If Joe Milton was starting, or even if Brian Maurer was starting at quarterback and didn't transfer, they'd still be decent. They would have lost that Pittsburgh game. They would not be beating LSU. They would not be beating Alabama. They would not. They might not have even beaten Florida the way that Anthony Richardson played. The way this defense gives up points and with the patchwork in the secondary, you truly have to be the most valuable player in the country, and that's why Hendon Hooker would be the Heisman Trophy winner. Because if McCord was playing at Ohio State, if even Devin Brown was starting at Ohio State, and C.J. Stroud is great, but we're talking now, we're arguing the top of the top. So it's not the easiest argument because Stroud's been so efficient. He's done nothing wrong in this process. When you talk about the Heisman Trophy, you're talking about the best of the best. Even Bryce Young, I know he won it last year. He's been impeccably good too. And people can argue, he threw for more yards than Hendon Hooker. But Hendon Hooker, at the end of the game, he made with 15 seconds left. This just shows you Josh Heupel. Hendon Hooker made the 2 biggest throws of the college football season. Hendon Hooker is taking a program in Tennessee and is making them relevant in a way where they're competing for the East and is taking them to new heights. Whereas Bryce Young and C.J. Stroud, they're at very established programs. They played great last year. And in the Big Ten, unfortunately for Stroud, he doesn't have the same competition level as the University of Tennessee. He hasn't had that signature moment, signature win. Now against Michigan, maybe. This race isn't over yet. But Hendon Hooker right now seems to be the guy. And I look at Hendon Hooker too. his arm strength is elite. His accuracy is fantastic. His leadership is off the charts. He can even scramble and step up into the pocket. So he's not a statue. He is a pocket passer who wins from the pocket. That some NFL evaluators talking about the next level are going to criticize him because, unlike Bryce Young's a magician with moving outside the pocket, and against those defensive linemen and defensive ends in the NFL, you might want that. And C.J. Stroud might be an inch taller than Hendon Hooker. He does have a bigger arm than Hooker, but both Stroud and Hooker to me are top 10 picks. And it's a great year for quarterbacks. Caleb Williams is a very talented quarterback, has great weapons, and is doing a very nice job in the Pac-12. You look at DTR, Dorian Thompson-Robinson is also a guy that factors in to the Heisman mix. You have Jalen Hyatt, too. The wide receiver from Tennessee is also going to factor in. But Will Anderson, a guy that is a shoo-in to be a top 10 pick, he needed to show up in the game. Henry To'oTo'o. The emotions of beating Henry To'oTo'o for that Tennessee team. Henry To'oTo'o went to Alabama. And that's what makes rivalries in sports great. And To'oTo'o, that's cool about the transfer portal. He's playing at Alabama. He's playing at a spot. But guess what? Tennessee fans have the right to brag over the opponent. And To'oTo'o is on Alabama now. And he's picked his side, and that's what goes on. And To'oTo'o was celebrating last year over Tennessee, and then the guys who stayed at Tennessee, they really get to relish in this win. Knoxville, Tennessee, the Tennessee fans, I think that the University of Tennessee football fans are the best football fans, not only in college, but in professional. They're the best football fans in sports. I think that their passion for their team is actually the best. They could be the best fan base in all sports because their passion is borderline insane. It's kind of like Philadelphia Eagles fans here in Philadelphia. Their fans are just, the fact that they took the goalpost, the fact that with Greg Schiano, they ride and didn't have to get Schiano. And now you look at Josh Heupel and Danny White. People thought that Danny White just took his buddy up from Orlando. But Danny White, he's also stuck with Rick Barnes. He was a guy who hired Nate Oates at Buffalo. Danny White is a genius. And Josh Heupel, I thought that offense was a little gimmicky at UCF. When they go 3 and out, it was painful to watch at UCF. Who knows for the future, by the way? This is still very much in question. If SEC defenses are going to catch up to like Jeff Lebby and Josh Heupel and the speed of offense. Who knows if they can ever catch up? Maybe the hashes in college, because you look at Cliff Kingsbury in the NFL is nothing special, and also quarterbacks in the NFL. The NFL is not a quarterback-driven league, but in college football right now, this offense is like Joe Brady. Hendon Hooker is like Joe Burrow. He's a magical player for the University of Tennessee. And is it Josh Heupel? Is it going to be this offense? The good news for Tennessee is, unlike Ed Orgeron, Josh Heupel is a coordinator, and he's coordinating this offense. And Tennessee, with the attractiveness of Neyland Stadium, the attractiveness in recruiting in the SEC, they're getting big-time wide receivers. Nimrod is a receiver that I looked at who's a very good receiver. They also have another top 25 receiver coming in. And then you get Nico Yamayea, who's 6'5", who seems to play a little bit like his other California quarterback, who's also 6'5", who was also rated very highly, DJ Uiagalelei. But the thing is about Yamayea, and it's not just, I know that people could say I'm comparing them because they both probably have Hawaiian descent, but it's like Yamayea, his brother's a great volleyball player, but his delivery just seems smoother than even DJ Uiagalelei, who has a loopy release. And Hendon Hooker too is kind of lanky build, kind of exactly like Nico. And this offense should probably continue to roll for at least the next couple of years. In college football, the SEC defenses, Will Muschamp, Kirby Smart, the way you have to beat Tennessee is you have to run the football, and somehow you have to get off the field on third down. Because if that offense gets a first down, it is just constant pressure. and strain on your defense, and they spread you out, and they go so fast that you need oxygen. You can't catch your breath. And with Drew Lock, the Heupel offense was unbelievable to watch as well with Drew Lock. That's when he had his best overall season. He threw for like 50 touchdowns and broke Peyton Manning's record. So if you're a receiver or a quarterback and you want offense, it's Josh Heupel. How long will it last? That's the question mark. But I can say I was wrong about Josh Heupel. I could say that confidently I was wrong. I thought that James Franklin would have been even a little bit better. I thought Josh Heupel was an 8-4, 7-5 guy who wouldn't be long for Tennessee because I thought his defensive would be so ineffective. And I looked at UCF was a program trending downward. And I thought that his offense would be figured out by the SEC level, that it was kind of gimmicky and too hurry-up-like, and the defense would just get killed. I thought it was a real line of scrimmage league. I didn't know he could throw all over Nick Saban, all over Alabama. He can go to LSU and throw and throw and throw. So there is a real defensive void in college football and in the SEC. Offenses rule college football. You're seeing that with Lincoln Riley right now. You're seeing that in college football. Offenses are ruling it. Georgia last year was just an exception to the rule. But that's what makes college football great, is because when you can throw the ball in college football, I guess you can be unguardable. There are still certain defenses that are very good, and the Big Ten does play different styles. But with the hash marks and everything that you're allowed to do, I think the field being more spread out because of the hash marks and because the entire defense is not to the level of NFL depth and NFL talent, you're really seeing offenses just explode in the passing game in college football. It's making for an exciting product. It's making for fireworks. But unlike the NFL, listen, if you don't like fireworks, you can still watch Oklahoma State play and they run the ball. You can watch Oregon play and they run the football. You're still going to see defense. Clemson has a wonderful defense. Clemson shut down Florida State. So that's the story of college football. That's the story of Alabama last week Tennessee beating Alabama. That's the story.